they fired again. On April 13, 2025, the Houthis launched not one but two ballistic missiles from deep inside Yemen, aimed at Israeli military targets. Within seconds, air raid sirens screamed across Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. The missiles fast, loud, and deadly. But they weren't just targeting Israel. They were testing limits and poking a much bigger bear. Because just offshore in international waters, a fully loaded U.S. Navy carrier strike group was already running high alert. And when missiles start flying in a war zone, especially ones launched by Iranian-backed rebels, the U.S. doesn't sit back, they drop the hammer. So, what really happened after those missiles were fired? And how close did this come to sparking something far bigger? The Houthis didn't just launch a missile. They launched a message. At exactly 3:41 a.m. local time, two ballistic missiles arced through the early morning sky, fired from rebel-controlled territory in northwest Yemen. Intelligence sources suggest their intended targets were Israeli military installations, possibly near Tel Aviv or the outskirts of Beersheba, but they never got that far. One was intercepted by Israeli air defenses mid-flight. The second broke apart over the southern West Bank, raining down metal debris over Hebron. No casualties this time, but the timing was no accident. The attack came just hours after a joint U.S.-Israeli intelligence briefing warned of increased Iranian activity across proxy networks, including Houthi missile stockpiles being repositioned in Sada and Houda. For years, the Houthis have claimed that they're fighting a defensive war against Saudi and Israeli influence, but their capabilities tell a different story. These aren't glorified bottle rockets. They're Iranian-supplied ballistic missiles. Think the Burkhan 2H, a 100-kilometer range solid-fueled beast capable of carrying a half-ton warhead designed to sow chaos far beyond Yemen's borders. And this isn't the first time they've tried it. Back in 2021, they fired similar missiles toward Riyadh. In late 2023, the UAE was targeted. But hitting Israel, that's a whole new level of escalation. And while Israel scrambled jets and launched interceptors, another player quietly activated. Just 400 nautical miles away, the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower Carrier Strike Group was patrolling the Red Sea. Multiple destroyers, including the USS Gravely and USS Leon, were already tracking the launch. They didn't engage. This wasn't their airspace. But the message was clear. The region had just lit a fuse. Because once ballistic missiles start flying, no one assumes they're stopping at one. The U.S. doesn't operate in wait-and-see mode in these waters. Not after what's happened this past year. The Houthis have already attacked commercial shipping, fired on Saudi oil facilities, and tested drones against U.S. destroyers. They're not just a local militia anymore. They're a destabilizing force with long-range weapons and zero hesitation. This particular strike may not have killed anyone, but it broke the pattern. It showed the Houthis were willing to target deeper, farther, and with more precision than ever before. And that makes them more dangerous than ever. So, what happens when an unstable rebel group fires strategic missiles in a hot zone patrolled by the world's most powerful navy? Simple. Everything tightens. Sensors come alive, silos unlock, and sailors across the strike group drop whatever they're doing. Because when one missile flies, others could follow. At the time of the Houthi launch, the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower Carrier Strike Group was operating in the northern Red Sea, well within reach of Yemen's western coast. That means the USS Gravely, the USS Leon, and other Arleigh-Burke-class destroyers were already tracking every radar ping from the Yemen mainland. This wasn't the first time they've been put on alert. Back in January, the Houthis launched drone swarms and anti-ship missiles at international shipping groups in the Bab-Mindev Strait. That incident triggered a direct U.S. retaliation. Tomahawk strikes on radar sites, launchers, and weapons depots across Houthi-controlled territory. Since then, U.S. vessels have been in a near-constant state of combat standby. So on April 13th, the alert wasn't a surprise. What made it different was where those missiles were headed. Missiles aimed at Israel, especially launched from Yemen, signal a serious regional escalation. And when you've got a carrier loaded with aircraft, hundreds of guided missiles, and over 5,000 personnel within range, you don't wait for confirmation of intent. You prepare for impact. Here's how it works. The Aegis combat system, the digital brain of the Navy's most advanced destroyers, immediately scanned for trajectory data. At the same time, E-2D advanced Hawkeye aircraft in the air began relaying intel back to the strike group. Airspace control was handed over to combat direction centers on board the Eisenhower, where operators coordinated air patrols, adjusted flight schedules, and scrambled to intercept capable fighters like the Fa-18E Super Hornet. And below deck, it's all business. You better believe it. Crews run drills. Damage control teams get in gear. Everyone knows their station. No one's panicking, but no one's relaxing either. According to multiple naval sources, the Eisenhower Group was not targeted directly, but officials aren't taking any chances. It's also worth noting that U.S. Navy ships in the area have rules of engagement that allow for defensive action the moment that a threat is detected. No need to wait for permission if something's inbound. So while Israeli interceptors lit up the night sky over Tel Aviv, American destroyers sat fully powered radars hot with launch tubes ready. But the big question was, would the U.S. actually fire back? After years of threats from the Houthis and multiple attacks on commercial and military targets in the Red Sea, the U.S. wasn't exactly in a forgiving mood. And that changes everything. According to military analysts and satellite imagery, two B-1B Lancer bombers out of Diego Garcia were quietly repositioned. That same night, CENTCOM confirmed a defensive airstrike on a Houthi radar installation believed to have played a role in the missile launch. No civilians, no warning, just a single precision-guided munition and a sudden thunderous wake-up call. But that was just the teaser. Within 48 hours, the U.S. launched a coordinated multi-target strike on Houthi military infrastructure. This included suspected missile depots, command and control hubs, and air defense systems near Hodeidah. Footage from local sources showed secondary explosions, likely indicating ammo or fuel storage was hit. Cruise missiles, most likely Tomahawks, fired from destroyers in the Red Sea, hit with terrifying precision. Unlike traditional artillery or airstrikes, these low-flying GPS-G-guided weapons cruise under radar, hugging the terrain until they slam into their target like a freight train. By the time you hear it, it's already too late. Simultaneously, naval electronic warfare teams likely jammed Houthi radar systems, scrambling their ability to coordinate a counterattack. The goal wasn't just to destroy hardware. It was to disorient, blind, and paralyze. And it worked. In the 72 hours following the U.S. response, Houthi media channels fell silent. No victory videos, no claims of defiance, just silence. For a group that thrives on propaganda, that speaks volumes. This wasn't just retaliation. It was a statement, a message, not just to the Houthis, but to their backers in Iran. If you escalate, we will respond swiftly, strategically, and without hesitation. And the message was reinforced by posture, not just firepower. U.S. naval forces remained in the area. Carrier operations continued. Combat air patrols from the Eisenhower flew daily missions, and destroyers maintained a constant radar picture over the Bab el-Mandab Strait and the Red Sea. It's important to note that this wasn't an act of war. It was a calculated show of dominance. The U.S. didn't flatten SA or carpet bomb rebel-held territory. That would have been disproportionate and reckless. But by taking out key assets with surgical precision, they sent a clear message. We see you. We're ready. And next time we won't be so polite. For months, Houthi leaders have been testing limits, hitting tankers, threatening allies, flexing Iranian hardware like trophies. They pushed and pushed and pushed again. This time they got hit back hard. But now the question becomes, is that enough? What do you think? Was the U.S. response strong enough to stop future attacks? Or should they have hit even harder? Drop your thoughts below. The Houthis did learn something the hard way, though. U.S. military power doesn't just come from firepower. It comes from systems that can see, think, and strike before a threat even gets close. Let's break it down here. When missiles are launched, whether from land, air, or sea, the first line of defense is detection. For the U.S. Navy, that job falls on the Aegis combat system, a computerized battle management platform that's like mission control for everything in the sky. It operates through the ANSBY-1DV radar, a phased array beast that can scan hundreds of miles in all directions, tracking more than 100 targets simultaneously. So when the Houthis launched their two little ballistic missiles on April 13th, ships like the USS Gravely and USS Leon didn't wait to see impact. They already knew the trajectories before the missiles even hit peak altitude. If one of those threats had been heading for the carrier group, the response would have been fast, brutal, and layered. The first layer would have been the SM-6 and SM-2 surface-to-air missiles. These aren't your average point defense weapons. The standard missile family is built to shoot down high-speed, high-altitude threats, including aircraft, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles fired from the vertical launch system cells aboard the Arleigh-Burke-class destroyers. These missiles use active radar homing and can engage targets 150 miles away. But what if something slips through? Then you get to the close-in fight. Enter SeaRAM, a hybrid system that combines the Phalanx radar and fire control with the rolling airframe missile or RAM launcher. It's designed to destroy threats at short range fast. It tracks, locks, and fires autonomously. You don't push a button. The system is the button. If a missile somehow gets past all of that, and that's a big F, then there's still the SeaRAM close-in weapon systems, also known as R2-D2, of the warships. It's a 20mm Gatling gun that spits out 45,000 rounds per minute, creating a literal wall of tungsten in front of incoming threats. Think of it as the Navy's last word. But let's not forget the eyes in the sky. Above the carrier strike coupe, E-2D Hawkeyes patrol with their massive rotating radars, feeding live data to every ship in the sea. Further out, MQ-9 Reapers and Global Hawks offer persistent surveillance, tracking launchers, movement, and signatures that suggest something's about to go down. All of these systems are stitched together into a single integrated picture. From radar operators on deck to strike planners in command centers thousands of miles away. It's called network-centric warfare, and it means that the U.S. doesn't just react to threats, it can anticipate them. And when retaliation is needed, that's when the Tomahawk comes into play. Fired from destroyers or submarines, the Tomahawk land attack missile or TAM can fly over 1,000 miles, change course mid-flight, and slam into its target with pinpoint accuracy. It can even loiter before striking or waiting for confirmation that the right person or facility is in place. In Yemen, that meant command centers got leveled before the next missile could even be wheeled out of the bunker. And here's the kicker. All of this happens fast. From detection to launch, to interception, sometimes under 60 seconds. This isn't science fiction, baby. This is what keeps carrier strike groups safe in waters where chaos can come from any direction. So the next time someone fires a missile at a U.S. ally or dares to test the world's most advanced naval force, they're not just gambling with retaliation. They're gambling against a machine that doesn't blink. Missiles might be fast, but intelligence is faster. Even before a single launch flare lit up the skies over Yemen, the U.S. was already watching, not from a single source, but from a vast global web of surveillance, data, and alliances that together form the backbone of modern warfare. Let's start with satellites. High above the Middle East, SPIRS, or the U.S. space-based infrared system, watches for heat signatures. The moment a ballistic missile is launched, even from a hidden site deep in the mountains, that heat plume is picked up instantly. Data streams to NORAD, to the Pentagon, and straight into the Combat Information Center on U.S. Navy ships in the region. But satellites don't work alone, either. On the ground signals intelligence units. Think NSA forward operatives and Navy cryptologists monitor communications across the region. Encrypted chatter, frequency spikes, electronic signatures, all of it gets analyzed. If a rebel commander sends a coded green light transmission, odds are someone at Fort Me heard it. Then there's human intelligence. Over the past decade, the U.S. has cultivated an extensive network of assets across Yemen, Saudi Arabia, and beyond. Local informants, allied intelligence services, even defected Houthi fighters play a part in feeding the intel back to American analysts. And here's the part that most people forget. The U.S. doesn't work alone. Every alert, every threat is cross-checked with Israel's Unit 8200, the UK's GCHQ and partner commands in CENTCOM and NATO. It's not just America pulling strings. It's a coalition of democracies facing down a proxy threat. So, when the Houthis launched those missiles, it didn't take long for the full picture to come together. Within minutes, analysts in Florida, drone pilots in Djibouti, and missile techs on the USS Gravely were looking at the same screen. The enemy's launch site, the trajectory, the response options, all of it mapped in real time. Global coordination at the speed of war. The U.S. has the tech, the intel, and the firepower to shut down threats in minutes. But should it always use it? That's the dilemma in modern conflict. Just because you can strike doesn't mean you always should. The missiles have stopped for now, but everyone watching this knows the game isn't over. The Middle East doesn't cool down. It smolders. Since the April 13th attack, the U.S. has tightened patrols in the Red Sea, expanded aerial surveillance, and bolstered regional partnerships. Carrier flight operations continue around the clock. Drones remain in the air. Destroyers keep their launch tubes open, but the Houthis are unpredictable and they're not operating alone. Iran has a long history of using proxies to test boundaries without getting its own hands dirty. And now that the Houthis have proven that they can strike Israeli territory, the stakes just went up. And you want to believe that? So, what if next time the missile isn't intercepted? What if it hits a civilian target? What if U.S. personnel are caught in the blast radius? That's the tightrope that the U.S. walks in this region every day. Respond too softly, and you invite more aggression. Hit too hard, and you risk dragging everyone into a regional war. The U.S. Navy is still there, still armed, still scanning every horizon. And when the next threat emerges, they won't be asking questions. The Houthis fired their shot. The U.S. answered. What do you think the U.S. should do next? Double down or dial it back before things explode? Let us know in the comments. We want to hear from you. What would you do if you were in command? If you found this video insightful, give it a like, subscribe for more frontline breakdowns, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a strike. Thanks for watching, and stay sharp because the next launch could already be locked in.